And a lot of people thought, what are you doing? Like, what are you honestly doing? Like,
Yeah.
why are you even transitioning out of this role? You make incredible money.
Yeah.
And for me, it was just identity. What would that 2.0 version of Billy do? Would he sacrifice, at the end of the day, you're still having to clock in, clock out. You're still having to work when they tell you to. You're still having to, have 28 days. Went to Bali and stuff. And I went to Bali and I met someone and he was doing high ticket sales.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
what's high ticket sales? I was trying to trade the full time. I was trying to become a trader.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
And I got back and I was like, what's the high ticket sales? And then I came across your Instagram because obviously I was searching it. I messaged you on the 31st of August and I was inside on the 2nd of September. So that I didn't really have much time of thinking about like two and two together. I just seen it. I came back and I was like, fuck it, why not? And I got in. And then since then it's just been a complete snowball effect. I'm working with you, the likes of you and Jerry. It's just been incredible. And
That's why, like, we get a lot of people that, bring in like referrals and people that they know of because it's like, no, like, mate, I'm telling you, like, this is my comm slip. This is what I'm doing.
when you see people doing it and you see their comm sheets and you see what can actually be possible in this space, and then once you're inside and you actually feel it, there's no turning back ever. I done 9.2k on the side of my 9.5, and then of April I went all in, and then I just done 15.4. Now that I've done that last month, everyone was like, there's no reason why you can't go and do 30, 40, 50k per month. And I know that I can.
We are back in the room. Another member interview. Very exciting stuff. We're with Billy Cummings. I think this is going to be a very interesting member interview. Just giving a rundown of basically, what can be done within remote sales, but also, how important it is to land a really, really good role within the space and what a great role working with great people can do from an earnings and also skill set perspective. So we'll dive straight in. Billy, if you want to give a quick introduction in terms of who you are, what you were doing prior to coming on board's Capital Closer, what you effectively made last month in comms, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I'm Billy Cummings, 22, based out in Newcastle. Before I joined Capital Closer, I used to sell high-end luxury watches to like big entrepreneurs, because people just like yourself, Connor, footballers, and then obviously transitioned into the high-ticket sales space. And then last month, on the first full month closing after leaving my role, I done 15,400.
Bullish. But what are you pacing this month as well?
Well, like I said earlier, I was like I've been on holiday now, what, 2 weeks, and I think I've done 9k, and I
Yeah.
haven't done anywhere for 2 weeks. Went traveling for a bit, went to Marbs, as you do when you leave, and then so yeah,
Yeah.
probably I'll probably finish on. I'll probably do another 15k this month with 2 weeks,
Yeah.
2 weeks out. So yeah, that'll be good if I can do that.
Well, I suppose, give everyone a little bit of context because I remember when Jerry mentioned it for the first time that he had a conversation with yourself. I said that's interesting because he's effectively, quote unquote, obviously it's still different as we'll touch on, doing high ticket sales already. If someone comes to you warm inbound, they're interested in a certain type of watch. Granted, the ticket size is a good bit higher, but it's somewhat similar in that respect. So firstly, because I think obviously being in that sort of occupation, like selling luxury watches, it's a great gig. It's a great role to be in, great industry, great environment. Why, what even in the first place was the reason why you almost looked into remote sales with what you were doing, obviously selling luxury watches prior?
Yeah, good question. Sick, sick. I would never have called it a job. I really wouldn't have never have called it a job. Like I was working for my family. It was a family-run business, and a lot of people thought, "What are you doing? Like, what are you honestly doing? Like,
Yeah,
why are you even transitioning out of this role? You make incredible money."
yeah,
And for me, it was just identity. I watched your videos, and it was just all about what would that 2.0 version of Billy do? Would he sacrifice? At the end of the day, you're still having to clock in, clock out. You're still having to work when they tell you to. You're still having to, have 28 days. And for me, it was just like, I just want total freedom. Being able to go whenever I want, being able to go to Amsterdam and then go to Spain and then come here and jump on an interview with you. And that was the main thing for me, but also like stepping into that person who I want to become as well, like in that situation of that's what he would do. So I just give it my all. And that I would say that was the main reason, yeah.
what even, like, was there anything else, like, why specifically remote sales? Was it just a case of, like, obviously you sort of saw the videos, did you sort of put the two and two
Mhm.
together and go, well, hang on, if I'm ever going to do anything for myself, I want it to be sales related sort of thing? Or what was the thinking?
I seen your videos, and then Well, if you want to go, if we want to go in a big backstory, actually, right? I went traveling for 7 months, went
All right.
across the world, went to Bali and stuff. I went to Bali and I met someone and he was doing high ticket sales. I
Right.
was like,
Yeah.
what's high ticket sales? I was trying to trade the full time. I was trying to become a trader.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
I done that for like 2 years, and I went to Bali and I was trading, and then I met someone who was doing high ticket sales. And I got back and I was like, "What's the high ticket sales?" And then I came across your Instagram because obviously I was searching it. I was like, "This little fucker, he's pretty fresh." I was like, "What does he do?" So I checked you out. I messaged you on the 31st of August, and I was inside on the 2nd of September. So that I didn't really have much time of thinking about like two and two together. I just seen it. I came back and I was like, "Fuck it, why not?" And I got in. And then since then, it's just been a complete snowball effect. And working with you, the likes of you and Jerry, it's just been incredible and very like-minded people. You know, you inspire people a lot inside of there, and it's just been a constant grind since. But that was mostly how it went. It wasn't really too much thinking about it. Obviously, I knew that I was doing sales, and I knew that I wanted more freedom.
Yes.
So it was kind of like, boom, yeah,
Well, it's good because you saw it. I always think that's quite like a good thing to see. You can see things like whether it's online or wherever it may be, but when you see it in the flesh and like someone says that thing to you, that's why like we get a lot of people that bring in like referrals and people that they know of because it's like no, like mate, I'm telling you like this is my comm slip, this is what I'm doing. And it's like, wow. Do you remember like when you were told back in, obviously you were doing trading at the time. Do you remember your first like opinions or thoughts? Like when that, I don't know who it was, but that guy was doing remote sales, he was in Bali or whatnot. Do you remember like what, I don't know what state you were in, whether it was at a party or whatever it may have been, but do you remember when he first mentioned it?
yeah. I was in a beach club. I was in a beach club. I wasn't actually drinking. I was chilling. I was with a missus.
Chilling, yeah.
Yeah, I was chilling, and we got talking. I was just telling him, and he's like, "Oh, well, what do you do?" And I just started telling him what I did, and he's like, "Oh," I was like, "What do you do?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm in high ticket sales." I was like, "Oh, what's that?" He's like, "Well, I used to be a salesman." Guy was from America actually, and he was like, "Oh, well, I just get on a call and close deals." I was like, "What?" I was like, "So what? You're gonna leave here and jump on a call and then close for me?" I was like, "How much you making?" He was making like 1,000 per call, and I
Yeah.
was like, "What?" Within like 45 minutes, and he was like, "Yeah." I was like, so, anyways, I got his Instagram, and then we just went our separate ways. And it was playing on my head. I was like, "What? 1,000 in like 45 minutes?" And then when I got back, obviously my feed was this, and then obviously I seen you, and you were UK, and I was like, "Wow, this is crazy. There's no way that can happen." But when you see people doing it, and you see their com sheets, and you see what can actually be possible in this space, and then once you're inside and you actually feel it, there's no turning back ever.
So what was your because you obviously balanced it on the side of a yeah, as you
Yeah.
said, like pretty in intense environment in the sense of you're working fucking very hard, but at the same time, like you said, similar to a lot of most of the guys inside, doing very, very well compared to the average, but doing very, very well. No need, of course, it became a need because of the identity side of things. But what was the first like 90 days like? Obviously, coming on board basically September time. What was that like in terms of progression and role and just learning the process as a whole?
Yeah, so first 90 days was just literally surrounding myself with everything. I got inside immediately. You on and just saying you have to literally dedicate yourself to this. Just surround yourself, like immerse everything. Watch the YouTube videos. I went through your full course more than once. I was jumping on the calls with you. You are a huge help, Jerry. Like being able to have someone there, and any questions that I had, I was asking Jerry. Jerry was helping us. And those first 90 days, I just locked myself away completely. It was turning into winter, and I knew that I was watching it in my magazine. I just monk mode, got a journal, and I left all the group chats. I didn't see none of the boys, and I just sat. I invested into a good little setup, and I just sat and I just went through it. I went through it, and then within those 90 days, so much can change, and I learned everything. And then it was all just about December comes up, it can be a little bit slow, but then just about finding that role. But that first 90 days was literally just learning everything from you and from the boys inside, and just going full ahead. But I feel like me locking myself in helps so much.
Yeah, yeah. Because you go
So
from
much.
like, I think that's the thing as well. Like, what people don't understand is like, you have to go through that 91, 20 days of like, there's going to be you're going to be working your role. You're going to be doing that anyway. So it has to be in the evenings and the weekends. And so when you would go out, when you would do whatever you're doing or go on holidays or, do your paddle or all of that stuff. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say, you don't need to do that. But for me, for yourself, for most of the guys that we have inside, it's very much all or nothing. There's no like, oh, I'll still fit in paddle. No, sometimes the gym has to be fucking sacrificed for the first
Yeah,
91, 20 days. And a lot of the guys love their fitness, but it's you do that. So as you say now, you get a time where you've just been to Marbella for a couple of weeks, you've meant to go to Amsterdam, whatever it may be. And well, I can go at 11, I'll go at 5, I'll go when I finish my calls or whatever. But yeah, talk through that because I think it's an interesting thing that so many people, like even some people that come on board, right? They make the commitment initially to themselves that we decide to bring them on board. But for the first 90 days, they don't almost switch. You don't need to completely change your life, but in a sense, you somewhat do. And they're like, oh, I'm doing this thing. Like, I'm just doing this thing on the side. And like, even that attitude, it's like, you're never going to succeed. So how did you, because as you said that, I think that's a huge thing, like leaving fucking group chats and leaving stuff like that. How did you even go about doing that? And what was almost the thinking behind it all and how you felt throughout it? Because obviously it's fucking tough.
yeah, it is. It is tough, but it's like, what's tougher? You staying where you are right now, having that mindset of like going in to work, or you just putting some work in for the next 90 days and changing your life. And I knew that was possible because that deals channel, like that's inside CC, is just unbelievable. Like once you get inside and you actually see what's going on and you see boys, that are doing it, it does something to you internally, and you know that you just have to lock in for 90 days. And it was tough. The difference between my work and what I would say corporate is when someone leaves at 7 o'clock, you get on the tube and you go home. Well, with me, it was non-stop on my phone. So I
Yeah.
was like watching videos, I was trying to close deals on my phone. It was difficult. Even then, when I transitioned, it was like I was trying to take calls, but my clients were ringing me because it's 24/7. So I knew that I needed to make that decision. That if I go all in now, it'll benefit me so much more later on down the line. And it was tough. But then you find some sort of peace in that as well, which I what I always say, and I was saying that to like some of the people who I've now met in Capital Close. I was like, just lock yourself away,
Yeah.
lock yourself away,
Yeah.
got it.
So
Because
it's
the people there'll be boys that come in there and they'll do the first part and then they'll like touch about, they'll go in and out. But those are the ones that like aren't able to like transition out. And I had that same mentality when because what you learned me at the start within that first 90 days of like submerse yourself. When you get to a point where you're like, look, I'm confident in what I do, I then submersed myself in the full high ticket sales and I left my role instantly. The minute I landed an offer, just
yeah.
went all in because I had already built that from the first time I invested and then submersed myself into the work. And then it's like a domino effect.
So what was the after like that 90-day standpoint, like in terms of like learning the sales process from an objection handling side of things, from a qualifying phase type thing, the 150 came up sales process, how that and also like being placed onto a role and landing a role, how did that look? And what was the sort of process in that sense? Because I think for your end, it was that 90 days was a big focus. And then you were like, right, from here, I want to make sure that I've got that skill to land a really good role. I don't just want to land an okay role. I want to land a really good one because my situation is actually pretty, like really good. So I'm not leaving this. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
leaving the good for good. I'm leaving the good for great, and I think that's one thing that you knew you wanted, which is actually really good. Like, you were like, it allowed you to sort of see through like, okay, no, yes, no, rather than like, yeah, I'll take the first thing. So, how did that look?
Yeah. After those 90 days, um, that's when I was like really confident in what you guys have done. And I actually dropped you a message and I sent you the role. You obviously the role landed in your inside capital closer, and I was like, "What do you think of this?" And you and Jerry were like, "Yeah, sick role, big guy in the e-commerce space." So that gave me full confidence and like, okay, let's have a look at that. So when I did and I seen what was possible, with your backing as well, I was like, yeah, this is huge. And then when I got on it and I started closing on the side of my job, I was leaving work at 5, getting straight home, closing from for like 5 till 1 a.m. And then that gave me so much confidence and like, yeah, this is great. This is great. This is what makes me want to transition out. But from that 90 to I'd say around 120, it was just like looking for that perfect role, which was perfect for me. And luckily it fell into CC and you guys told me exactly what was possible with it. And then from there just kept on going and now obviously we are where we are.
So on the roll, obviously you don't give too much away, but like on the roll, just to give the highlight reel almost, like what is the role in the sense of like what is it you're selling? What is the price point? And then like how much are you making per sale? And like what's a little bit of obviously you don't have to touch on who, but like what's the bit of backing of like the type of entrepreneur that you're working for, or the type of company, should we say?
Yeah, the guy that I'm working for is just on another level. Billionaire on the Forbes list, just doing ridiculous numbers in e-commerce. Like a lot of people know exactly who he is. I sell e-commerce to other business owners, so people who come to me or maybe struggling with their meta ads, their marketing, struggling to get leads. And then what I'll do is we have different packages. So I've got like a 5K package for people who are beginners who are looking to get into e-commerce. I've then got a 10K package, a 25K package, and a 30K package. So like on a 30K package, I'll make like 3K in a 45-minute sales call, which is crazy.
Sold a couple of them.
Yeah, I sold a couple of them. Yeah,
What's the
ridiculous amount.
comms like? What's the comms like on that versus a little Daytona or something? What's the comms?
Well, yeah, you're probably looking at from anything from like 100 quid to like 3,000 within 45 minutes. And for someone to buy a Daytona, that might take like 2-3 weeks.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Whereas with that, it's like a 45-minute sales call,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is crazy. It's
yeah.
crazy to think about. Like, I jump on a call with me and you. We go through the 150K sales process, build trust, and then boom, they're buying that.
What was your first so she landed that role when specifically?
I landed that role on the February the 14th.
February the 14th. And then what was the first, well, talk us through sort of now until then in terms of like, obviously you did a little bit of it, a little, well, you did a few months part-time actually. So give a bit of
Yeah,
context in terms of what your day-to-day looked like part-time to begin with. And then what you were able to do up until part-time. And then we can touch on full-time. But I think it's good to give people clarity in terms of like, yeah, as you say, you weren't even working a job. You were fucking pretty much running a business 24/7. And I think it'd be good for people to hear how you were able to fit it in and what it looked like.
yeah. So on the offer, you do like they call it a ramp up period where you learn everything about the offer. With e-commerce, it can you've got to learn certain things, the language. So within 2 weeks, on February the 14th, I landed that role. By March 1st, I was closing on the side of my 9 to 5. So I was waking up, hitting the gym at like 7, going to work from like 9 till 5, getting back for about 6, and then I was closing from 6 till about 1, just non-stop, back to back to back to back calls for like a full month. I'd done 9.2K on the side of my 9 to 5. And then I was like, I need to have this conversation. And I messaged you, didn't we? Kind of, we jumped on a call. But like, I need to have this conversation, obviously, with my dad to be like, what do I need to do? And you were like, you know what? Just go for it. So I did. So I'd done another month on the side of my 9 to 5, which was March.
Yeah.
Give obviously my dad the 4 week notice to say, look, I'm going. I think I finished off on 10K. And then of April, I went all in, and then I just done 15.4.
Like, do you, what's the people around you think of like, because again, I think from that perspective, it's like probably, are you crazy? Are you mental? And now it's the, yeah, what are their thoughts?
Yeah, it's at first everyone was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And like unbelievable job. You'll never find this again. Like, don't get me wrong, the job was the best thing in the world. It never actually felt like a job. Working with the family and working with the type of people that I've met. But I just knew that I was meant for more. And then now that I've done that last month, everyone was like, "There's no reason why you can't go and do 30, 40, 50K per month." And I know that I can. And then it's just like, especially the missus. The missus now asking for a lot more stuff.
Sometimes you've got to keep it quiet. Sometimes you've got to,
I
but
think
I mean,
at the first 2 months I did keep it quiet. I did keep it quiet, but then obviously when you start making the type of money, and like one of the boys seen your story, I was on there, and he messaged us obviously because I was on the leaderboard, and then he's seen it, and I was like, you know what, I'll just see.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I get it. With the role that you're on at the moment as well, like, what are your, because I think it's one of those where it's a fantastic role, and from you from a skill set side of things and how you're conducting your calls, I think it's quite nuanced in the sense of you're selling, B2C, but also B2B, which is quite nice. So you've got that, mid ticket, but you've also got the high ticket. How are you feeling regarding like conducting your calls now, and just from a skill set point of view? Obviously the earnings are great, but from like the input of actually your skill set as a whole.
Yeah, it's huge. I think the good thing about it is obviously what we learn inside. Especially with like your B2B experience as well. I feel like you've mixed it in a lot because when I went back through it when I landed the role, it's helped massively for me
Mm.
when it comes to skill set, when it comes to B2C, B2B. Um, yeah. What else would you? What else? What else do you mean by that when it comes to skill set?
Yeah, it's just in terms of like having your calls really. You know, obviously you're speaking to a variety of different business owners and also consumers at the same point, closing different packages and whatnot. So like how do you think it sort of helped you be able to be quite versatile in that respect?
In my last role,
Yeah, in the no, in the in the current econ one, yeah.
what my old job, how it's helped me now, or
More,
CC?
yeah, CC.
Yeah, huge, huge. Because corporate, I feel like corporate and in high tech closing is different
Yeah.
completely. It is, I would say so. In a sense, especially what I was doing.
Mm.
So like I've never really done like sales like what you did, but what I was doing was completely different. Even
Hmm.
though it was still inbound, it's a lot more psychological in the types of questions that you're using as well. And being able to jump in there and obviously use what I knew, but then learning from what you knew as well, but then also your spin on B2B as well with what your knowledge is from your previous role was huge for when it comes to e-commerce, a whole wide range of things. And it's allowed me to do what 15.4 last month, and I totally believe that I can hit 30K, by the end of this year for sure. So
What to give people clarity then for the next, 6 months, what are you genuinely, and I think this is the beautiful thing about this industry, when you actually set goals, there's no like winging it. It's quite like input output. You take this amount of calls, you develop your skill set, this many attended, this is your close rate, this is your AOV, this is your show rate, well, that's your output. It's very, I like it because it's simple. There's no like fucking like, oh, this may happen and this and all these variables. So what is the plans for the next sort of 6 months, both like whether it's sort of earning potential, within your existing role and just how you're structuring your day to day? Because I'm assuming if, me and you, well, if I had a look at your day to day now versus, what it was 6 months ago, I'd imagine that's very different.
yeah, it is 100%. It is. Don't get me wrong. I can train when I want and do what I want, but I'm still also like locked in on the calls. And like you said, the good thing about this is you can actually predict what you're going to be making, and there's no reason why, from my numbers that I know when it comes to close rate, when it comes to show rate, that I should not be doing 30K by the end of this year. And then like the types of roles that I was, getting sent the other day, I was away unfortunately, but that role that you sent me, kind of, with that big guy is huge. Like that's where the potential of me making like 40, 50K becomes really, really, really realistic. And that's my goals. Like the offer that I'm on now, fantastic, but like that's not where we're gonna finish off.
Mm, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
absolutely. And from your perspective, like obviously there's, you mentioned obviously capital closure, seeing it when you sort of got back from that um, holiday in Bali. Like, what was it for you that made you necessarily think like, yeah, like for example, capital closure is where I want to sort of, develop and this is who I want to work with type of thing.
with you it was just very relatable, but also like again going back to the identity was your mindset. The way you went about it, and just being like, it's a skill set, but it's also a mindset thing, really related with myself.
Hmm.
um and then just seeing what you had done with other people, when you were putting those deals in, and I was like, it's possible. You make it look like it's very possible, and when you get inside you realize like, wow, like this is really it. And I've probably not seen that anywhere else, you
Yeah.
know with that social proof and the boys who are being able to do what they do. Well,
Yeah.
that's what made me kind of go for yourself.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing. It's the biggest thing. It's exciting. It's an organization where, like it's all about creating that sales organization of like everyone paid for
Yes.
performance, leaderboard, quarterly top performer trips. Like that's what it's all about. Because it's one of the best industries to be in. And it's like I think, when people look at capital closer, you're either capital closer or you're everything else. Like you know as a person when you see, you're like, right, that's my type of company. Or it's like that's definitely not. There is no like in the middle, which
In
is
between.
which is good. Exactly how we want it to be. Well, look,